Darling, could you please hurry up, sit down? We need to record this podcast because there is gaming to do later today. We do not have much time, so we need to get through this as quickly as possible. Can you please hurry up and start talking?
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
The Gaming Lovers Podcast with Brendo and Jem. G'day and welcome to episode 31 of
31.
The Gaming Lovers. I'm Jem.
I'm Brendo, and we're joined by a special little fairy guest. It's Jem's Eevee from the new Pokemon Let's Go Eevee edition.
I've got my Eevee in my Pokeball and I've been taking it out for walks and playing with it and looking like a crazy person talking to my Pokemon.
Well, before we get to that, we are going to discuss later in this episode how to get the most gaming out of a limited time availability.
Yes.
Life is tough sometimes. Things get in the way, whether it be family, whether it be work, whether it be other social gatherings, whether it be other responsibilities. Maybe the lawn needs mowing, like at our house, but I missed bin day, so our garden waste bin's still full and I have nowhere to put garden waste.
It's very tempting at the moment to just throw it over the back fence because there is construction happening and there is literally like a mountain of dirt like right behind our back fence. So they wouldn't notice like some extra lawn clippings, I don't think.
Well, unfortunately, this is not the Better Homes and Gardens podcast. This is the Gaming Lovers. How do you get gaming time in when there's very little wiggle room in a busy schedule? We're going to be talking about that later. But right now, Jem just is bursting at the seams to tell some stories about her personal Eevee.
Yes.
So let's get right into
Gaming goals! That was slightly out of tune, but
I thought it was beautiful. I was going to say it was fantastic. So please surprise us with what you have been playing this past week.
So I was playing Assassin's Creed.
We have been. That's not a fabrication.
I haven't stopped. I've still got so much to do. I looked at the hours that I've clocked into Odyssey.
I'm curious.
I think last I checked it was sitting at 60. I know. And
you've been overseas for weeks.
I know, right? But the real kicker is the percentage bar that tells you how much like progress you've made through the whole game is sitting at like 22%.
Oh my gosh.
It's huge. And they added more content recently and I'm like, I can't keep up. So it is a mammoth game. I'm having a lot of fun though. Like we've said in previous episodes of the Gaming Lovers, there's even with the RPG elements that have been introduced, it's still kind of shallow in that area. Like there's elements, but it's not fully fledged as yet. So they haven't completely gone off the traditional path of Assassin's Creed games. So for me, I think there is like the bare minimum of RPG elements for me to find it more engaging than other stuff. You know, there's so much more other stuff that they could have put in it, and I kind of hope that if they continue down this road for future things that they'll dive a little deeper in that aspect, because it is one of my favorite genres as far as gaming goes. So yeah, I'm having a lot of fun in ancient Greece, but I recently went back to Kanto.
The Kanto region.
Yes. Oh my goodness. There's a lot of interesting reviews as far as Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee are concerned. I think if you were watching those trailers with open eyes, you kind of knew what you're getting into.
Yes.
It was clearly a simplified version of those games that we grew up with, like the original red and blue, yellow editions.
Any primary colour is fine.
Pretty much. But it is cuteness intensified and definitely really hits hard on those nostalgia notes. Oh my goodness. But there is something so unbelievably enjoyable, at least for me, about playing with Pokemon and seeing them walk in the world and make it feel like they're really real.
Yeah, it's something that I've wanted those games to have for years. Whereas in previous Pokemon games, you had the random battles. You would walk through grass or through a cave, and at some point,
and just bump into them.
You would start a fight, and you wouldn't know what you're battling against until the actual battle began. In Pokemon Let's Go, every Pokemon is in the world. Like,
Yep.
it's whether it's a Zubat flying around in a cave or it's a Bellsprout shuffling his way through the grass. You can see them in the world. You can target the ones you want to catch.
Yep.
You can ignore them completely if you want to.
Yep.
That is wonderful. People are celebrating in the streets that they can get through Mount Moon with not a single Zubat fight.
Yes, if you don't want it, and you can choose to run away if you don't. And it's different because to catch Pokemon, it's just like playing Pokemon Go, where it's just literally throwing Pokeballs and berries at it until it submits or runs away. Whereas any battles that you have against other trainers.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them, for the most part, are pretty much cakewalks. Like, they are so easy.
To be fair, they have been in a lot of Pokemon games.
True. But that said, they have saved some hard fights for when you beat the main game and get past the Elite Four.
Mm-hmm.
There are some special boss fights waiting for you. For those who love their strategy and what Pokemon is famous for, like accounting for all the weaknesses your favorite Pokemon might have and putting their strengths against the strengths or the weaknesses of whoever you're battling against.
I've always liked that enormous rock, paper, scissors aspect of Pokemon. But it's not just 3 things. There's, 18
So
different
many.
types? Things have strengths against certain things. Then you got your Pokemon, which is
Lizard
obviously
Spock.
strong against some stuff, weak against others, offensively, defensively.
Mm-hmm.
So for the most part, when you play through a main Pokemon game, you shouldn't lose many fights.
Yeah.
You know what you're getting into. You know what the gym is. You know what types you need to have. If you have a varied team, you should not hit any roadblocks. But where Pokemon games have shimmered, where they
Glistened.
have where they have glistened with
Shine
brilliance,
bright like a diamond. Sorry. Keep going.
where Pokemon games have shined in the past few generations is the post-game content. So I'm looking forward to getting to that post-game, being the champion of the world, and then master trainers emerge from the darkness,
Yeah.
and you actually have legit challenges. I'm looking forward to that.
It's interesting because with the Pokemon Go elements that they talked about in the lead up and that being able to import Pokemon from your Pokemon Go collection, you have to get to quite a deep part of the game, really, almost near the end, to be able to actually import them. I'm happy with that decision because I think if you could bring them in from the beginning, you would have, for some people that are really dedicated to Pokemon Go, there'd be no point in playing the game because you'd almost have everything.
I'm leaving my hometown with my Charizard, my Mewtwo, my...
Although I did feel a little funny having not just Eevee, but a Mew floating around me because those who get the Pokeball controller get Mew inside it. So I'm like, I feel so overpowered. I know Mew's only level 1, but still, it's Mew, and ain't nothing beating my Mew.
Now, I need to know, you were very happy to have that Mew join the team.
Yes.
Is Eevee jealous? He's finally got the starring role. Pikachu has been front and centre for 2 decades at least. Eevee finally gets his time as a mascot, and you ignore it for Mew. Eevee, how does that make you feel? Oh, that does not sound... That is not a happy Eevee.
Poor Eevee.
Yes. I think you've fractured that friendship a little bit early on. You're going to have to work on that. Make sure you rub it on the chin. I think it likes that.
It doesn't. No, the funny thing is with the interactions you have, depending on its mood and where you scratch its head or its tummy or whatever, sometimes it doesn't like it. Sometimes it's not in the mood to be rubbed there and it will glare at you.
Not all of us are in the mood for tummy rubs at every hour of the day.
I suppose that's true. But it's funny how simple interactions like that, building up this story of this special bond that you have with a unique Pokemon and engaging with it, like that, and it being able to learn moves way more than it's supposed to be able to, that kind of stuff. A very overpowered Pokemon. My Eevee can do some crazy stuff, but...
And you're not just talking about its fashion sense.
No, I haven't given it the bowler cut haircut. But there's something, I don't it feels, it sounds crazy to say this, but it makes it feel more real, like this is a real pet that I'm engaging with, and I feel more connected, and it makes it feel more personable than any other Pokemon game to date. you know?
Mm-hmm.
And they've done such a good job at that. The other thing that I really like that they've introduced is this co-op thing where someone can like shake a controller and just join you if you're in a fight. If you are catching Pokemon, they will assist you.
They can teleport in from the heavens.
And basically make it a really unfair match or make it give you bonuses and help you rack up extra experience points when catching Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
And the cool thing about that, not only is it cool to have like that extra assistance, but could you imagine like if we had like a little kid that maybe wasn't the best at playing video games but still really wants to play with you, to be able to hand them that second controller, let them join in. They don't really necessarily make the big decisions, but they still feel like they're helping and they're playing.
I'm pretty sure they can't start fights, whether it be trainer or wild Pokemon. They can just assist you during the fights.
Yeah. So they walk around, they're like a buddy, and I think that's such a cool feature of, especially because we were kids when Pokemon first came out. And I think the creators are aware of that, the age bracket that a lot of long-term fans are at, that they're starting their own families. And so they've made a game that is perfect for like, you know, parent-child game co-op.
Yeah, not just
cool.
Not just game mechanics either. This is a remake of the first generation games. Yeah. Where better to start learning about Pokemon than when there's only 151.
Exactly.
And maybe a few more, depending on Pokemon Go's interactions.
And the Alola versions of things that come into it too, which come through special trades that you might do. So someone might ask, hey, you want to swap my Rattata for your Rattata? And, you know, they might end up having a higher level than the one that you trade anyway, but they ultimately just have a different appearance then. Yep. There's nothing extra. But it's kind of cool.
Some type differences too.
Yeah, they bring something just a little bit in and it's optional. But yeah, it's kind of a nice bridge, I think, for gamers who perhaps loved Pokemon early and then kind of backed off and are now rediscovering it.
Yep.
Or for like a brand new generation. This is such a great introductory game, and I'm honestly, I haven't actually been addicted to a Pokemon game this much since the original. And like,
and the dependent cycle begins all over again.
It's so good. And it literally made me want to re-download Pokemon Go because I got rid of that because it was driving me nuts. The navigation thing kept freaking out on me and telling me off for driving too fast when I'm sitting on my bed. So
to be fair, we have only really tried Pokemon Go when it was very early in its run.
That.
Trading wasn't a thing. Gym leader battles were barely even functioning.
I think that was before they were even teaming up with the Nintendo company, before they partnered up with them. So
it was a lot simpler than it is now. And
they've added a lot of features since we first played that. But it's nice to see the changes that have been made to partner with this. So
such changes as the professor showing up and saying Meltan Quest Dialogue 001, Meltan Quest Dialogue 002.
Bit of a bug. Something didn't get imported properly, unfortunately. That was funny. I think that made the rounds on the internet.
Yeah, you were not alone with that one.
Yeah. But yeah, as far as like if I was to give a review, like, and just say overall, like, I mean, it is rather easy for those who want a challenge. This might not be quite so satisfying, but I think that this is such a wonderful walk down memory lane, but also a great introduction for younger generations as well. I think it hits a lot of really good tones, and I love it. I feel like a little kid. I think because for me it is such a it hits right in the heartstrings as far as my childhood. I think that's why I love it. And I think if someone didn't grow up with it as much, like if one of my sisters played it, they wouldn't be as into it as I am. Oh. But for those who are looking for a Pokemon game with more of a challenge, wait, because we do know that Nintendo has announced that they are working on one, but it's just not coming out until probably next year or the year after. Yeah,
even if you are a Pokemon fan, it can depend on if this title is for you. I personally I couldn't care less about the competitive side of Pokemon as far as playing against actual people. I like it for the collecting aspect.
Yeah.
I love to collect Pokemon, to evolve the Pokemon I have, to conquer those preset challenges in the game with the gym leaders and the Elite Four and the champion and things like that. I enjoy that side of things. So this game is perfect for someone like myself. The only people who are really up in arms about the simplicity and the ease of difficulty of this game is the competitive Pokemon fan base.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you're one of them, like we said, feel free to sit out. But that doesn't mean that other people can't enjoy this product for what it is.
Another thing I actually really loved about this is obviously you've got like Professor Oak's grandson is there as kind of a rival, although he hasn't been too mean to my character.
He said, smell you later. That's too harsh.
How dare he? No, but you've got like a friend rival that's at the beginning. And I was like, oh, I wonder if they choose the gender based on what you choose. But it's always a boy because we made Brendo start it up too so I could compare the two. It's always a boy. But it's really interesting. I've been reading all the dialogue. I'm probably reading far too much into it. And the dialogue of some of the ways that like the best friend kind of talks to you and helps you out and is kind of looking after you and comparing journeys. I'm like, oh, you two are so in love. I'm like, wait, this is creepy. They're like 11.
Yes, this is creepy. Maybe don't.
And you're young though, like that doesn't seem creepy because you're like close to their age, and it was still a fun thing for me to be able to see that. And I'm not sure if dialogue changes at all. It probably doesn't, but it is fun to kind of look at it through that lens.
Well, this is gaming goals time. How far have you got in Pokemon Let's Go Eevee?
I am in the dark cave, so I've passed Diglett's cave, and there I'm in the cave where you have to have like a special technique to light up dark spaces, like pitch black spaces. So some caves you walk through and they're still somehow just as well lit as like outside, but there's one cave, I can't remember exactly where, but it lights up with only a special technique that you can train your special Pokemon with, whether it's Pikachu or Eevee.
How many badges do you have? That's the definitive.
I have 3
There
at
you
the
go.
moment, and I'm wondering if I've gotten further than I ever did with Yellow, because I'm wondering if I'm trying to remember when I lent my game to my friend, never to see the poor thing again.
Oh, that is
but I know I never finished it. So I'm getting to the point where my memories are starting to get hazier and hazier. I'm like, I don't know if I remember this bit. So I might be overtaking what young Jem ever reached. So
that is fascinating.
yeah.
Now, you have gotten further than myself. I've only got 2 badges. Unfortunately,
It's because I've been hogging it.
I was going to say life gets in the way, but it happens that Jem gets in the way.
Wife gets in the way.
You heard it here first. It's been
When
admitted.
it comes to Pokemon, anyway.
But I have greatly enjoyed it as well. Now, the thing that I absolutely adore about this game is that you can have any of the original generation of Pokemon by your side. Whether they be small enough to just follow you along, like a Oddish or a Meowth, or whatever you want. They can follow along. Or you can have something bigger like an Arcanine or Rapidash, and you can actually ride it. Now, that is amazing, just for me. I'm looking forward to having someone who was on my original Generation 1 team, and that is Dodrio, the 3-headed bird. Hopefully it's big enough for me to ride, because that would be like a dream come true.
Possibly. One thing I am a little sad about is that, like with pretty much every other Pokemon game, when they split them into their color versus color thing, that there are some Pokemon that are on one game and some that are on the other, and you either have to trade or get both games to be able to collect them all. And I think they're relying on people catching the missing ones from each game in Pokemon Go to kind of fill out their Pokedex, which is a little sad.
At least you have that option, though.
True. There are some Pokemon that are on like the Let's Go Pikachu version that I really love and I won't get to see or capture in the game. And yeah, so once I finally get to the point where I can import stuff from my Pokemon Go Pokedex.
It gets confusing.
It does a little bit. Then we'll see if that makes much of a difference. But yeah, that was just one of those few things where I'm like, oh man, I want to have all of them in there. But from a business standpoint, you know why they do it.
So you're giving it 2 thumbs up so far?
Totally. Absolutely. I love it.
From myself, 2 thumbs up. And what about Eevee? What does Eevee give it?
Oh, I think he likes it.
Oh, big fan of the game that he's starring in. So
I think he's a bit biased. Eevee is very, very cute, though.
Apart from Pokemon, something of a similar vein, Dark Souls 2 is what I've been playing. Just as punishing. No, it's completely different, actually. I decided, against my better judgment, to live stream my journey through Dark Souls 2. I hate looking like an idiot, and that's exactly what happened within the first 10 minutes of that game. I couldn't find a simple corridor, and I was running around the first area with no idea what to do. So, pretty great. I have yet to die, though. I've played for 2 hours, have not died. I'm pretty proud of that. I have no idea if I've picked a good character class because I've gone in completely blind. No build tips or anything. I went through an entire section in the Forest of the Giants or something and seemed to have hit a dead end. Again, there might be a simple corridor that I've missed, like an idiot, but it's all on tape, so someone might point it out to me. Does that count as a tip if someone comments to me and says, hey, you forgot to do this at 42 minutes into your playthrough? I'm not sure.
Possibly. I don't know. It's because you can leave notes in some... I don't know if you can in number 2, but in other Dark Souls games, people leave little notes and you can only write them using set words that the game lets, so that way there can't be, like, swearing for the most part in there. People have to get really creative. But... like, some people do them deliberately to set up traps, and some people leave tips for, like, a big boss fight that's coming up around the next corner.
Oh, I haven't had any of those either, so maybe that's why I've survived so far.
Maybe. But yeah, you'll definitely have to do some more live streaming, I think, of that. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on in this episode. But if you do want to see previous stuff that Brendo has live streamed, or even stuff that we've done with our Overcooked, which we have severely neglected, you can check it out. The links are on our website at thegaminglovers.com.
Or just look for Hyper Brendo. He's out there. He's out there.
What if there's another Hyper Brendo?
There better not be.
Ooh, rivalry in the making.
Share the love. Follow us on Twitter at Brendo and Jem. That's BRENDOJEM.
Now, we are the gaming lovers. We love games, and sometimes we get to play them.
We probably get to play them more than most. We don't have any kids as yet, so we do have a little bit more time on our hands than some people our age. But that said, we do work a lot.
And work very not jobs that are very kind to planning schedules. Let's put it that way. I can work in the early morning, I can work in the afternoon, I could work in the evening, or I could even work overnight, which is not fun and not good for brain and for words.
Yep.
And yourself, you suddenly get the surprise of, hey, we got a voice job we need you to do. So every day could be a mystery day for you. You never know what's around the corner.
There are some days I feel like I sit at home and all I do is like play video games and, other like chores and stuff that have to be done around the house. But there are some days where I feel like I live in my studio for 10, 12, 14 hours, depending on the kind of workload that I have, which has been kind of recent. Ever since we got back from Japan, trying to catch up on a very big project that I've been working on. Oh my goodness, I can't wait for this one to end. I'm like, hopefully I can get it done before Christmas. But
well, we just wanted you to mention of the hours.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not so much the workload. She had to vent. I apologise.
It's just a button that, like, when someone mentions it, it just comes out. You can't stop it.
I work so hard. Won't anyone acknowledge me?
I need a sook. No, yeah, life, I think everyone has this, where there's just times where you're just overwhelmed or just day-to-day busyness. So fitting things in, it is so important, I think, in this day and age especially, to take time out to chill and to decompress.
Self-care.
Yes. We neglect, I think, in the go aspects of life, we tend to neglect that time where we need to relax and slow down. And games have been proven to help with the mind as far as processing, as far as training your brain, but also helps reduce stress. And that's why so many people swear by certain video games as their stress release, So fitting it in and time management. I guess this is kind of comes into that a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
But we've also got some creative suggestions of things that you can do to utilize time that maybe you didn't think about as a potential time for gaming.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously these are all suggestions. They might have to be tailored to fit whatever your life situation is, but hopefully they will be adaptable enough to suit anyone and everyone.
Absolutely. Well, I'll start us off because when I was going through my training to be a trainee train driver, and yes, that was the official thing that I was doing. I was a trainee train driver who had to do training and had to catch a train to the training to be a trainee train driver. Now, the place I had to get to do that training was on the other side of the city.
Mm-hmm.
So when I had to get there for a 7 or an 8 a.m. start, whenever it was, I had to leave awfully early.
Mm-hmm.
And because I didn't want to deal with the car traffic, I decided to catch the train.
Mm-hmm.
But all up, I was looking at about an hour and a half plus each way,
Mm-hmm.
to there and back home. That's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Now, I could have used that to read the newspaper or to stare out the window.
Or sleep.
Or sleep.
We
Sleep
saw a
was
lot of
out
that in
the question.
Japan. You just see so many people that like just fall asleep in their own shoulder and will magically manage to wake up just at the right stop because they've trained their brain to wake up when they hear the jingle of their station that they're at. But yeah, sorry, continue your story.
That's fine. Yeah, I used to spend hours on trains to and from my training. Now, some people do that for work, some do it for university or college or school or to go see a loved one. Perhaps you're in a semi-long distance relationship and you have a long train trip to see your significant other.
Mm-hmm.
That's all time that could be used gaming. And I
Absolutely.
can attest to this.
Mm-hmm.
So you think of how much time that is. That's multiple hours each day, 5 days a week. That all adds up. I could get through a couple of games a month,
Yeah.
purely using time that would otherwise be wasted.
Even if it was an hour each way, 5 times a week, you would have 10 hours of gaming right then and there.
Prime for visual novels or games like a Pokémon on a handheld or a Legend of Zelda that you can invest enough time to get invested, to
Yeah.
get into the game. And then you're like, okay, we've got 2 more stops. I can do a little bit more. I'll save my game. Suspend it, put it away into the bag, done. And then on the way back, you've already squeezed in some gaming before we even get home to cook dinner.
Absolutely. And you find that the travel that normally is something that people dread turns into a part of the day that you can actually enjoy because it's productive, but also you're doing a hobby that you love, so it's no longer a kind of drudgery anymore. And on that same vein, when you travel, I think of the gaming channel Up, Up, Down, Down, which is Austin Creed, who you may know as Xavier Woods on WWE in the New Day. When they do that gaming channel, they literally take consoles in special travel cases from city to city everywhere that they go so that they can keep the channel going, but also it was before they ever started the channel, it was just a bunch of friends gaming to help kill time, whether they're in their hotel rooms or back in the locker rooms and they've got time to kill before that they're called to Gorilla, which is where the curtains are for their entrance. So things like that you can use. There's a lot of things now that make gaming more travel friendly. Obviously some bigger consoles you need really good quality cases and that would be expensive and heavy to take an Xbox or a PlayStation with you, but thankfully with things like the Nintendo Switch that is way more travel friendly, so you could play Pokemon Let's Go Eevee on the train if you wanted to, and use that time that would otherwise feel kind of like a burden and a thing that you dread and turn it into something you can be excited for.
And one of the things that people absolutely despise, whether it be on if you're trying to catch a flight or if your train home is suddenly delayed with signal failures or something, and you don't know how long that delay is going to take, your state of mind will be a lot more relaxed when you know, oh, well, I'm just playing my game a little bit longer. Or if your flight's delayed at an airport, well, I guess we'll be leaving, 50 minutes later. I'll just keep playing my game. It does help. And it is time that would normally be like, oh, great, I'm going to be half an hour late home. What a waste of time.
Yeah.
Suddenly, that's gaming time, baby.
Absolutely.
Gaming time, baby.
In a similar vein, any time where you have to spend time in a waiting room or in a queue, like long queues, not just short things like when you're waiting, to get Macca's or something.
Doctor's offices.
Doctor's offices, definitely. Anytime you've got like an appointment, that usually means you're sitting in a waiting room for about like half an hour or so.
Even if you show up on time.
In Australia, people that are on welfare go to a place called Centrelink, which has notoriously long lines. Things like that. You could utilize your time with travel-friendly games and find ways to turn chores and travel and any time that would feel kind of wasted, really, into something fun and productive.
Mm-hmm. Now, switching gears, there's another strategy for squeezing in as much gaming as possible that my dear wife here is absolutely no stranger to.
Yes, I do lots of multitasking, so combining my gaming with other things that I have to do. If I want to get through 2 hobbies at once, sometimes I do that as well. So, as we've mentioned before in this podcast, I tend to watch a lot of TV at the same time, depending on the game I'm playing. If the game has an engrossing story, then it gets my focus 100%. But if I'm doing a lot of dungeon crawling, grinding to kind of get my levels up, I get bored. And so I will have Netflix streaming a show that I've seen before or like that I don't need to have my full attention necessarily on the screen. Or sometimes listen to podcasts, and
I know a good one. It's the Gaming Lovers.
And I'll have that on, so I feel like I'm like doing 2 things at once and getting stuff done. One thing I know that you do is with cut scenes, like long ones especially, so which is hard to predict if you're playing like a new game. But if you're replaying an old one, say Metal Gear, that has really long cutscenes.
It's not even predicting new games. Like, I'm playing Yakuza 0 at the moment. Haven't played that much this week, so it didn't actually make the gaming goals cut. We blabbed on far too long about Pokémon for that. But Yakuza is another game that I love because of its long cutscenes. I can do goofy side activities, that's fine. Do little side quests here and there. But when you go to do another chunk of story, there's probably going to be a chunk of story. So what I like to do, simple, as long as the game doesn't have any quick time events that pop up randomly in cutscenes like some games do,
Yes.
I like to do a little bit of, now I'm not buff, but I do a little bit of weights. Just a few bicep curls here and there while I'm listening to these characters give exposition on what's happening in the story. And that way I can just enjoy exercise time. It means when I finish my gaming, I can go, I've exercised today and I played games.
Yep.
I've done something productive for my health. I've played some games as well. Everyone's happy. I can go to bed, not feel like a slob.
I find I do that probably more with TV shows and things. But if I have chores, like if I have to do a big clean of the house or I want to do like yoga or something, sometimes rather than listening to the whoever the fitness model is repeatedly saying the same thing that I've have memorized moveset over and over, I'll watch an episode or 2 of like a favorite show and I'll use that to be like, once this is over, then that's the end of exercise, or use those shows and listen to the dialogue while I'm doing all these chores that I hate to do, but I can focus on the show. And so that way I'm just, by the end of it, I'm like, oh, and suddenly the house looks nice again. So, and I know that's not quite gaming, but like those things kind of overlap a little bit. And I feel like
it's still entertainment.
Yeah, in the
getting
same
time
vein
to enjoy entertainment.
Exactly. And I mean, you want to save some stuff to be solely focused on, like some entertainment, some movies, some TV shows, some video games. You should be focused on 100% because it needs it for the best enjoyment. But there is other stuff that you can definitely have and only have be half focused and still get plenty of enjoyment on it. So for us, that's one of the things that we do quite regularly so that we feel like we're still up to date with certain things. Like with wrestling, I think that's one of the big ones, is that we'll have that on. And because the commentators generally do a good job of describing play-by-play bits, that you don't have to see all the action to feel like you've watch the match.
Yeah, if you're partway through a 3-hour episode of Monday Night Raw and it's a match between two guys you honestly couldn't care less about. Jem and I usually have our DSs or our Vitas open, and we're usually working our way towards some trophies or, just getting through a few more levels of experience in this JRPG. It still feels productive. We can still glance up at the TV for big moves, still hear our commentary to keep us on track as far as what's happening. Everyone's happy.
Absolutely.
Now, another little side story about the exercise side of things. Like I said, I like to keep fit here and there with a little bit of workout. Some people who play Dark Souls, a game where you die a lot, punish themselves, and they call it you either get good or you get fit. And if you die, you drop down, you pump out 20 push-ups or whatever, and then you give it another shot. And when you get to certain boss fights, your arm's going to be rubber by the end of that because you've probably done that about 14 times.
That's a good way. It's kind of like with penalty games and stuff. That's a really good system, I think, to put in place. It's a shame we haven't got the camera on you for the live stream because that would be funny to make you do that.
Haven't died yet. And if I do, you'll be able to check out the size of my guns by the time I'm done.
You're listening to the Gaming Lovers Podcast. Want to join the conversation? Visit thegaminglovers.com. Record your comment or question by clicking on the button on the right-hand side. And you could be featured in the next podcast.
One way you can save time with gaming, if you want to get the most done, or if you are struggling to get through backlog, which is an issue that we have, let's face it.
Constantly.
Is to be a bit more ruthless. So treat things like side quests, DLC, trophy, and achievement hunting as something like that's not necessary. Be honest and stick to the main plot. Get through the main bulk of the story. If you do have time, you can always go back later. But if you are pressed for time, stick to what is the main part of the game, and that way you can be just at least happy with the fact that you've finished another game.
Yep. I agree completely.
It's hard for me because I'm a completionist. I love getting all those little silly, pointless, time-wasting trophies. I think the biggest one would have been Fallout 4 getting that platinum. Oh my goodness, such a waste of time, but it was also gratifying. But, if I was so pressed for time and if I'd been trying to do that, say, before going to Japan, there's no way. You gotta sometimes be a little harder on yourself and say, nope, just going to stick to this and focus on the main goal, and if I can, then I'll come back to it another time. It hurts a little to say that, but you gotta be brutal.
No, I like that you put DLC in there as well, because when I played through Spider-Man recently, I loved that game. Yep. I beat it. I got most of the trophies. There was a couple to still grind out.
Yep.
But at that point in time, I'm like, I don't really want to waste time grinding out these trophies when I have other stuff to enjoy.
Yeah.
So now, since we came back from Japan, the DLC has started to launch. And right now, I don't feel like I have to play that and add that to my backlog.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm like, okay, I might pick that up or pick up the season pass when it is on sale. Now that I've said that, it's like Black Friday weekend, so it probably is on sale. But
they're all on sale.
You know what I mean. There's certain games that I've played, like Prey. I walked into that thinking, I'll start that game, I'll finish it, next, move on. I fell in love with that game, and I played through it 2 or 3 more times to get all those achievements, to experience different play styles, because it's all I wanted to play. And that's fine. There have been other games where as soon as I've beaten them, as soon as those credits have rolled, I'm like, thank you for your service, eject, into the box, into the shelf, who's next? Move on. Let's get through this backlog.
I think the mindset is if you really love a game, you want to do everything in it. And, that's fair enough. But if you still have so much other stuff that you want to experience, or just life itself is so busy that you can't give it the attention that it needs, we shouldn't make ourselves feel guilty for not 100%ing everything or doing all those little side things. They're side things. If you can still beat the main story and have a good time, then you shouldn't feel guilty for missing out on little stuff. So I think this is almost me talking to myself. It's okay, Jem, to miss out on side quests. There's that meme where the guy is like looking over his shoulder at the other girl and the other girl's like, what are you doing? So like that, it's like me looking at side quests while the main story is going, what's going on?
Excuse me, I'm the main story. That's me with Skyrim. I think I mentioned on this podcast before. I played it for like 200 and something hours through 2 different playthroughs, never beat the main story.
And it's so easy to do that. And I'm like having that same problem with Odyssey. I'm trying to force myself to do a lot of main story stuff. And then, like, if I'm really interested in a side quest, then I might take the time. But because there are quite a few quests and missions in there that feel very rinse repeat, same thing, I'm like, I'm getting better at saying, no, there's not much point. I mean, it will help me level up and maybe get better gear, but I'm not too fast. I want to keep pushing the story forward because that's what I'm finding more interesting.
Yeah. Well, this also ties into our next point, which is take what gaming time you can get. Where it's so strange that when you look at your schedule, you look at your evening, okay, it's 2 hours until bedtime. I don't think I've got time to play games. Have you ever thought that?
Oh, easy.
It's such a strange thing. I've hung out with my buddy at his house, the Falcon, and we hang out for usually 5 to 7 hours for our sessions. And we play games start to finish. And there's been evenings where you've gone out and I'm like, I got 3 hours to kill. I'm not going to go hang out with him. That's not enough time. Then I'm like, that's so dumb. It's 3 hours. I'm going to go to his house. We're going to do what we can. Maybe we'll watch a movie together or something.
Yep.
And gaming's the same. There's been times working weird hours. Sometimes I'm like, I've got half an hour until I start work. Maybe I'll just do some side stuff in Yakuza, for example. Or maybe if you're playing a game like a Red Dead Redemption, you got to hunt animals for skins. Maybe you're just like, I'll just see if I can get something rare in this half an hour. If I get something, I get something. If I don't, I don't. And if you do, it means you've worked towards one of those goals. You've still made progress in the game. Even if you haven't achieved a great milestone or something, half an hour in a JRPG could simply be leveling up a few times before a boss fight, making it easier to steamroll through that next obstacle.
Absolutely. I think the mindset we fall into, like the trap of thinking that we don't have enough time to really truly enjoy it. And I get that because with big games like Red Dead Redemption's a good one, you want to give quite a few hours in a row into that kind of game because it sucks you in so well. Like putting it down after even an hour would feel like you've done nothing.
Enough.
You'd be like, wait, that was an hour? No, someone clearly fast forwarded time. Like, so I get that mentality because we fall for it all the time ourselves that that's never enough, and we tend to save those bigger chunks of free time for those types of games.
Yeah, there are games that feel like you can't get a decent enough session in unless you have hours. The other night when I was considering starting my Dark Souls playthrough, I'm like, I've got to stay up late because I've got late shifts. I don't want to go to bed for another 2 hours. Is 2 hours enough to get invested in the start of a Dark Souls game? I don't know. And then I'm like, no, forget it. I'm going to start it. I'll play for these 2 hours, and however far I get, I'll pick it up next time.
Yep. I think because it's so easy to get sucked into those games, that's why we always want to give ourselves more time. But if you deliberately kind of go in with the intention of playing it for a brief period, maybe avoid anything that's too like heavy story related and just focus on those light, fluffy things that are probably considered time wasters, but are still going to help make the main campaign a little easier. Yeah. It can help build towards that goal, and you can slowly chip away at it, and still feel like you have a gaming life, even though you've got so much other responsibility, whether there are kids that you've got to look after and eating into some of that time, or work, just life.
It's just life.
So I think it's so important when you are super busy to make time, even if it is just half an hour, to feel like you have a little bit of me time to decompress, to relax, and have some fun in the virtual world. So I think if you pre-plan a little bit of making a deliberate choice of I'm going to focus on this aspect of the game, then it will be easier to manage your time a little as far as fitting it in and making some progress without feeling like you, because sometimes you accidentally like trigger story.
Yeah, whoops, don't talk to me, don't talk to me. No, they talk to me.
Yeah, so like if you can play something and you can know that you can safely avoid triggering or starting or, getting stuck in an area where you can't save, which is always the worst.
Just gives me back memories. That's how I learnt how to manage my gaming time perfectly, is when I could... Can I just play the PlayStation for 20 minutes while you're cooking dinner? That's cool. And then you realise start hearing the clanging of utensils getting ready, and you're like, I got to hightail it to a save point. I can't get there in time.
Mm-hmm.
And your parents start saying, come on, it's time for dinner. And you're like, just let me save.
They're a lot more ruthless back then too. It was a lot harder to save.
Nowadays you got rest modes on your controllers. You got consoles that can just suspend. Nothing to worry about.
The tricky thing is though, if you do a lot of online playing, obviously saving isn't easy. Playing for short bursts wouldn't be as easy as well, I imagine, especially if you're trying to level up in those games. The more hours you can pour into them, the better obviously you do, and can keep up with your friends and other competitors that you might play against on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But, you can still find ways to have a healthy life balance and not feel like, that gaming is overtaking your life or that it's getting completely neglected. So I think choosing the game that you play also to fit into those tiny slots of free time can be the big difference of getting the most out of it or, screwing yourself over.
Now, as we said, we have very, very antisocial hours as far as our availability is sometimes eaten up when everyone else is available. It makes it very difficult for us to get together, for myself, to get together with the guys and have a good time, catch up, see what's happening in everyone's life. But one way where I've found I can actually manage that a bit better is that using that time, I have a group of 4 men that we hang out with. Manly time. And instead of...
Sorry. No, keep going.
Manly.
Thanks, Daria.
Instead of getting together, catching up over a coffee or at the local park to kick a footy around, I'm not that athletic. So we've decided to get together every month for a board game session and playing through currently the campaign of Pandemic Legacy. So it's not video game, but it still uses the same principle.
Yeah.
Every month we've decided, okay, we're going to try and coordinate our Saturdays. We'll try to find a morning so we get it over and done with. Still got the rest of the weekend, all good. We catch up, we keep it regular, we still get the gaming in. Now, if I was trying to find time to have a board game session with people, I'd have to squeeze it in places. But because we've already allocated that to be our regular hangout, I still get the social aspect with the guys. We get to make progress on a game. It's a board game, but a video game could still be used in this role. If you're playing something like Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time or things like that, you can actually work together towards a goal. Overcooked, for example. You might want to get the friends together. Ladies, we're getting together for Overcooked tonight. It could happen. It's a good example of way that you could spend a social gathering, catch up with people, bond, have good times, strengthen those friendships. It's hard to find time for friends with busy life.
Absolutely.
And if they're gamers, you're gamers, maybe, just maybe, you could catch up over a video game.
And that doesn't have to necessarily be in person. It can be online catch-ups, which is the benefit of the technology we live in. I mean, I still prefer face-to-face. I am a firm believer that friendships are stronger when you have more face-to-face interactions.
Yep.
It's healthier just for you and to ward off things like depression and stuff. It's been proven to be a very important factor. But that said, it's still a lot of fun to link on with a group of friends, play games. I still even remember back in early days, before we really had the internet to do this, but we would still have like computer link games. It was like Doom and Quake. On the school computers and all, like, it would just be in the room together, but we'd be like smack talking each other from across the room, all playing against each other, and it was a bonding experience. So you can find ways, whatever works for you with your setup and your friend's setup and your time management, to fit that in. And the beauty of some of those games is that you can set time limits on them. So if you have a specific time that one of you might need to be gone, you can cater for that.
But I mean, we've had group get-togethers with our friends. We've caught up with friends. We've played Jackbox together. Jackbox Party Pack 5, I believe, has launched.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Or is very close to. One of the two. I'm not sure. I'll just not pretend like I know what I'm talking about. I won't lie to you. It's one of those. It's either out or it's not. Even since we've come back from Japan, very recently, we've had catch-ups with your family over Mario Party.
Yep.
We've had catch-ups with my family over Mario Party. And boy howdy, were they noisy and rowdy when we started playing some of those mini-games.
Yes, people, I mean, it tends to get rowdy anyway, regardless of when family comes over, but it hits next level loud when you start playing competitive mini games together. It's
had
so much fun.
My two sisters, my niece and nephew, my father, all their ages across the whole scale, all enjoying some Mario Party antics, bonding together with a family time that we don't get as a big giant group all that often. And there were many laughs, memories. My younger sister had made the unfortunate choice of choosing Monty Mole as her character, so...
Everyone kept calling it ya mole.
The mole one. Nice
Which,
work, the mole.
In Australia is kind of not the most flattering
It's a bit of a negative connotation to being a mole.
I mean, I don't know if in other countries, to be honest, if it's ever used as an insult, but in Australia, it's quite a bogan term to call someone a mole. It's got to be said in the right voice.
It was very funny, though. And maybe if you have a young family, perhaps playing Minecraft with your kid is, if they love Minecraft and you have never tried it before, give it a shot. Try and play cooperative with them.
Absolutely.
Lego games are another absolute winner for a young family. And like we said, Pokemon Let's Go may just be one of the most helpful co-pilot child games I've ever seen.
Absolutely. It's almost like it's been made for, you know, us as an older generation to use to introduce the younger generation to Pokemon and gaming in general. It is so awesome. It's like gushing about this game. But I think it's been designed almost very deliberately as a way to help kind of pass the torch. And I think it's great. Like, we hear stories about parents who deliberately hand their kids, like, a controller that doesn't have batteries in it just so they can pretend that they're playing even though it's the parent playing. Yep. And those are all very clever ways, like, to make them feel like you're still having fun with your kid while keeping them busy so you have some sanity, like, whatever works. I mean, you do what you need to do.
I used that strategy with my younger sister back in the Sega Master System days with a Tom and Jerry game where you play as Tom chasing Jerry. And I, for many, many sessions, told my younger sister she was playing as Jerry.
Yep.
And we had hours of fun together with me just deceiving her and lying.
I think they hit a certain age, though, they start to realise that, hang on, I was pointing the other direction. This controller doesn't really work. I feel like, you know, having kids doesn't mean that you can't have time to game. You just have to get a little bit more creative with your time, whether it's utilising those quiet moments that you do have, those brief moments in between things. It might mean that you do try some more casual-esque style games, things that are more mobile friendly. Even on your smartphone, there are a lot more options out there, and I know that that does tend to lean towards a lot of games that are very microtransaction-y, but they're not all like that. And I love playing games on my mobile. I've always been a big advocate for that. But you can still get creative as far as keeping them included too. There are options. So it just depends on what you're into and the time that you have and what skill level that they are at too. So depending on where they fall and the time you have and the energy you have, there is something, I think, for everyone. So it's just a matter of finding what fits.
Now, we've had strategies for young families, for single folk, for busy workers, all sorts of people, families. I think I said families twice, but it doesn't matter. Young families, old families, in between families, it's all good. But what about those special people? Perhaps you have a gaming lover in your life. Husband and wife gamers, how do we find time to maximise our gaming without having marital separation?
Well, I think that depends on the couple because obviously we both love gaming, so it's a shared hobby. It's much easier for us. We know quite a few people, though, where unfortunately that's not the case.
Oh, no.
There are people...
Gaming unlovers.
they're lovers, but they don't both love gaming, unfortunately. So one is only got that window of time when they by themselves and their significant other is out maybe at another social engagement or working if they've got different work hours, that they use those times to squeeze in some gaming.
Yep.
But if you can play with your partner, then obviously you can get more time and use that as a great bonding experience. That's what we do.
I've read articles recently of somebody who basically did a month's worth of extra chores, cleaned the cars, did the gutters, maybe massage the wife's shoulders during her favourite movie. All so that when Red Dead Redemption 2 dropped,
they'd have time.
I have a free weekend to play as much of this game as I want.
Without being nagged.
And it's all good. Now, there's obviously a line where things go from requests and doing services to get that sort of negotiations going without it becoming manipulation. So as long as you can stay on the correct side of that line, I think that's a great tactic. If you say, hey, I'll look after the kids more, you can go hang out with your sister or whatever, go catch up, have a nice night out, see a movie, and that means next weekend I would just like a few hours to get into my new game.
Absolutely. As far as that give and take is concerned, like when we have movies that we both love, and sometimes there'll be very different genres, and it'll be like, okay, tonight we'll watch what you want to watch, and the next night we watch what I want to watch. And so it's that give and take of a balance of both, and making sure that everyone gets a turn of what they want to do. With video games, I think for us, our biggest problem is we're fighting over the TV and the console, especially with Pokemon at the moment. We're like, because you can take the Switch on the road, you had one night where you took it to work so you could play it when you had your like dinner break and stuff. And oh man, even though I had Odyssey to play at home, I was missing Pokemon. I'm like, no, I should have let it stay here.
Why did I be generous?
And you probably had that because the other night you let it stay home so I could play it through the evening, and then you were probably missing it too. So it's you just got to find that balance of sharing.
Always stories of people fighting over the remote.
Yes.
And when we were freshly married, we only had one TV in the house.
Yeah.
It was a bit more, tonight's my night.
Yes.
Thank you very much. You played last night. Tonight's my, no, what are you doing? Stop turning that console on.
Yeah, thankfully now we have the option, like I can even move a console to a different TV and we can be playing two different games at the same time but at different ends of the house. But sometimes that feels a little like
antisocial.
Yeah, and we feel like, hang on, we need to spend more time together. So there'll be times when I might be playing a game using the main TV and he might be playing something on a handheld sitting next to me, so we can still be, cuddling and affectionate, and sometimes we'll comment on each other's games and things like that. We won't do that if we are both playing the same game and there's major spoilers.
Oh, no,
that's when the other person's
not.
like, I'm playing this game, you're banished. You are banished to the other room.
When something big with massive story implications comes out, we basically don't see each other for a few weeks because you go play in there with the headphones on, so I don't hear what happens in your game. And let me know when you're done. Just come out and find me when you're done. I'll be at the other end of the house watching Phineas and Ferb.
For sure. I think for the couples, though, that don't have that issue, like if you do have a partner that doesn't like games and finds them frustrating or just doesn't get them.
Find a new partner.
Oh, no.
Don't listen to me. I'm not recommended.
Hey, just because they don't see the awesomeness that is video games, obviously they need some re-education. But anyway, there are other ways you can still get them involved or keep them engaged, or like other couples have done, and get creative in making those compromises. And I'll give a little bit of this if you're willing to give me a little bit of this, and find that balance. as far as, managing your time and sharing each other's hobbies. So I think, if you're willing to put up with some of the maybe like movies that you're not necessarily into or TV shows or other activities to then maybe convince your partner to share some of your favorite things and potentially turn them around. You never know. Maybe once they sink some time into a game, they might discover that they really like it. I find that most people who are so anti-video games just have never played them properly and for long enough.
It's those silly Pac-Man. It's just a waste of time and money.
But, like, if you introduce them to a game that's really got great, compelling story or good beautiful graphics and cutscenes, they'll usually be happy to watch you play. Mel and Steve, our dear Overcooked rivals, they only play a couple of games co-op together, like Overcooked, but Mel will watch Steve play games like Metal Gear and things that have a lot of story and cutscenes.
Detroit Become Human.
Yes.
Steve played while his wife watched.
And she made the decisions for the most part through the story. So they were still kind of playing together, but just in a different way. So finding a way to still stay involved and have that interaction, just not necessarily the traditional co-op, So there are always creative ways to link that. And so that way you don't feel like playing a video game is isolation and eating away from time that you would be spending with your partner, because you do feel a little guilty if, like, you're playing something and you've been at work and they've been at work, and then you spend the free downtime that you have at home in separate areas because you've both got different hobbies. You start to feel a little bad. So finding that balance is not always easy, but, it's worth it.
And if you do actually have one of those partners where you've seen the pictures on the internet where there is a PlayStation 4 in the bathtub and the caption is, "He spent more time with this than me," maybe reassess the person you're seeing, because that's if it's an integrated part of your enjoyment, maybe you should make sure that the person knows that before you start the relationship.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all well and good to sink lots of hours into a game. I mean, we've done it. But if I had friends over or family over, like, I wouldn't play that kind of game when I know that I need to be spending time and focusing on them. Same with, like, a relationship. Like, you gotta have balance. So, but that said, those memes are always blown way out of proportion, and they probably only played a game for like a short amount of time, but all it takes is 5 minutes of being ignored and they feel like it's been an hour or something. So, yeah, you best be careful. You just don't upset your girl. Like, that seems like it should be common sense, right?
Well, sometimes things upset the girl that you don't think will upset the girl, and it actually upsets the girl.
I think the key part of that phrase was "you don't think."
Oh boy, here we go. I'm having the PS4 tonight, by the way.
So long as I get the Switch, yeah.
Anyway, let's move on, because that's exactly what we would like to be doing this evening.
Yes, play games. What are we doing this podcast
time
for? My goodness, I could be playing the Switch while I'm in the booth, while I'm doing this podcast. I could be totally catching Pokemon right now. What are you doing? I'm wasting my time. Let's finish this thing. Okay, good.
No,
Bye,
we
Nara.
still have gaming goals to take care of.
Okay.
What are you planning on playing this week?
Pokemon, Let's Go, Eevee, and Odyssey. Probably a bit of both. Just because if you've got the Switch,
You
Odyssey,
are
Assassin's
terrible
Creed.
at just shortening names of games, and these poor
I
listeners.
would like to think the people that have been listening from context would know from the beginning when I mentioned Assassin's Creed that I'm still talking and referencing the same game, yeah?
Well, that's nice and easy. I'll be playing Yakuza 0 in my spare time, and in between, when I get long enough sessions using these amazing strategies that we talked about, I will be streaming more Dark Souls 2. Make sure you subscribe onto my YouTube channel, and make sure you get those alerts, because you never know what time of day it's going to happen. Because I don't know what time of day it's going to happen, because my schedule is stupid.
You can always catch up on old live streams, though, at his channel, which is on YouTube, which you can find the links at thegaminglovers.com. And you can always leave us a message there as well if you have any questions. It's been a little while since we've, I think, asked for anyone to shoot through, but you feel free to send us a message or a question. You can record it at our website, thegaminglovers.com.
Mm-hmm. She's Jem.
He's Brendo.
And this is Eevee. And we are out of here.
Chowski.
It sounds like a Pokemon, doesn't it?
Chowski. Sayonara.
Thanks for listening to the Gaming Lovers podcast. For more episodes or to watch some live stream gaming, visit thegaminglovers.com.